Today, I'm going to tell you 5 mistakes that you need to avoid during your job interview. Now, these are all really easy mistakes to make, but they can ultimately be the difference between a pass or a fail. So please make sure that you watch this tutorial right to the very end, so that you do not make any of these 5 common mistakes. Mistake number 1 is failing to make a good first impression. Now, when you attend your interview, you will be marked on a number of different things. One of those things is your presentation and appearance. So it's really important that you make a good first impression. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look at the example of someone turning up to an interview late. If you turn up to your interview even 1 minute late, it's unlikely that you are going to get hired. Why? Because you have already demonstrated a lack of timekeeping skills. But also, what it tells the employer is that you probably won't start your work on time either. You may say, "Oh, but that's not true. I always start my work on time." Well, unfortunately, it doesn't matter what you think. That is the message that the interviewer has received, and that is the message that they are going to act upon. The same thing applies if you turn up to your interview looking scruffy. So, for example, if you've got long hair, make sure that you tie it back. Make sure that your clothes are smart and professional, and also make sure that your shoes are clean and polished. It doesn't matter what job you are applying for. Even if it's a job role that says casual or no uniform required, you still need to make sure that you dress smart for your job interview. This is because it demonstrates a level of respect towards the employer. What do I mean by that? Well, by dressing smartly, it shows them that you have high standards and you care about the work that you do. Mistake number 2 is not understanding the job description. Now, every job description has 2 parts to it. The first part outlines all of the duties and responsibilities that are involved in the role. The second part of the job description outlines the skills and qualities that are needed to carry out the job properly. Now, if you do not understand the job description, it's highly unlikely that you will get hired. Here's why. The job description is used as the basis of the interview questions that you will have to answer. So, for example, if the job description says that one of the main duties of the role is to carry out sales transactions with customers, then it's likely that you will get asked the interview question, "Tell me about a time when you dealt with a difficult customer." Now, if you do not have any experience of dealing with customers or difficult customers, you won't be able to answer that question, and therefore you are unlikely to get hired. So make sure that you read the job description before you attend your interview. And if you are unsure of anything within the job description, make sure that you ask the hiring manager to clarify it before you start answering the questions. Interview tips. When reading the job description before your interview, make sure that you highlight the key skills and qualities that are outlined on it. Then, as you are going through your answers to the interview questions, make sure that you give lots of examples of how you have carried out the duties of the role in previous work and how you have used the skills and qualities that are outlined on the job description. Mistake number 3 is giving generic answers during your interview. Now, generic answers are answers that are very vague, and they don't give the employer any specifics about your skills, qualities, and experience. For example, let's take a look at the interview question. What's your greatest strength? Now, if you were to respond to that question by saying, "My greatest strength is that I'm a hard worker," that is a generic response. That is a very vague response, and it's unlikely that you will get hired as a result of that. However, if you said something like, "My greatest strength is that I'm commercially driven and results-orientated," that is a much better response, because it tells the employer exactly what you will do within the role. You will always be looking to bring in new business, and you will always be looking to achieve great results for their company. Here's another really common interview question that candidates give a generic response to. Why should we hire you? Now, a generic response to that question could be, "I believe that I should be hired for this position, because I will always work hard and I will always represent your company in a positive manner." While that response isn't necessarily incorrect, it lacks any specifics. It doesn't tell the employer exactly what benefits they will gain from taking you on. A better response would be, "You should hire me for this position, because I will always put the customer first. And I believe that this will lead to increased sales and profits for your business." Interview tip before you attend your interview. Make sure that you have prepared responses to all of the common interview questions and make sure that your responses are specific, and they tell the employer exactly what benefits they will gain from taking you on. Mistake number 4 is running out of time during your interview. Now, there's nothing worse than running out of time during your job interview. Not only does it stress you out, but it also stresses the interviewer out too. Now there's only really 2 reasons why candidates run out of time during their interview. The first reason is because they have not prepared properly for the interview, and therefore they don't know what the answers to the interview questions are. And the second reason is the candidate gives lengthy and detailed responses to each of the interview questions. Now neither of these reasons are going to help you pass your interview, so make sure that you prepare fully for your interview. Make sure that you know what the answers to the interview questions are. And also make sure that you keep your answers nice and concise. Don't waffle. Don't give lengthy and detailed responses to each of the interview questions, because this will only run the risk of running out of time. Mistake number 5 is failing to tell the interviewer the benefits that you can bring to their business. Now this is a really common mistake that candidates make, and it can ultimately cost them the job. Now when a prospective employer is hiring for a position, they have one goal in mind: to take on the candidate who they feel will add value to their business. Now if you fail to tell the interviewer the benefits that you can bring to their business, they won't have any assurances that you can help them to achieve their commercial objectives. Let us take the example of an interview question that most people think is going to come up during their interview. What's your greatest weakness? Now if you were to answer that question by saying, my greatest weakness is that I tend to get angry when working under pressure, that response doesn't really tell the employer the benefits that you can bring to their business. However, if you were to answer that question by saying, my greatest weakness is that I tend to get angry when working under pressure. However, what I do to counteract this is I always try to stay calm. And I remind myself that mistakes happen, and we can always rectify them. Now that response tells the employer that you are self-aware. It tells them that you know your weaknesses and you are doing something about it to make sure that it doesn't affect your work. It also tells the employer that you are a fast learner because you are willing to learn from your mistakes. Before you attend your interview, make sure that you have prepared responses to all of the interview questions, and that each response tells the interviewer the benefits that you can bring to their business. Now I am going to give you a list of interview questions that you need to prepare for, and make sure that your responses tell the interviewer the benefits that you can bring to their business. So here's a list of really common interview questions that come up often during job interviews. Tell me about yourself. This is a really important interview question. Why do you want this job? Why do you want to work for us? What's your greatest strength? What's your greatest weakness? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What's your ideal work environment? Do you work well as part of a team? Tell me about a time when you provided excellent customer service. Tell me about a time when you made a mistake. Tell me about a time when you achieved a difficult task or project. Tell me about a time when you worked under pressure. What are your salary expectations? This final interview question comes up often during job interviews. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you all the best for passing your interview. Have a great day.